All right, young scholars, welcome to Marketing 3720, Logistics and Transportation. Now, even though this class is online through the remainder of the semester, Kane Online does require us to have a weekly 1-hour meeting. So I'm doing that today for you and recording that. Going forward, it'll be on Mondays. So each week here, you're provided with specific readings. The resources are just the PowerPoint slide decks from the publisher. And then each week, you're going to be required to complete a discussion thread, a case study, and a quiz. So as you saw in my announcement emails, I recommended all of you just go ahead and do the quizzes first. These CAs, the last thing in each of your module, because these are just 20 random obscure questions taken from the chapters covered during that unit. So for example, this week, chapters 1 and 2, there's 20 questions. They're always set up as 10 true or false questions and 10 multiple choice questions. I've looked through them. They may show up as different questions. 3 people take the quiz. All 3 might have 20 completely different questions. They're all taken from a test bank that the publisher produced. So I recommend doing those first because you have 50 minutes to do it. And it's the lowest amount of points for each of the assessments. So the discussion threads are worth 30 points. Your case studies are 75 points. And those quizzes are 20 points. Each question is just a point each. So you notice as you scroll through each of the units, our weekly times are set up. We start on Tuesday. Everything is due on Monday. So go ahead and keep that in mind. However, our last unit, Unit 8, is set up to run Tuesday the 19th through Friday the 22nd. So again, Kane Online doesn't allow us to edit anything. So even though it currently lists that all of the assignments are due on Christmas, they're technically due that Friday the 22nd. So keep that in mind going forward. So what these, our weekly meetings are basically going to focus on is me kind of just giving you an overview of the topic. I'll give you some additional information, and I'll make some suggestions for you specific to what you need to accomplish each time. So the first thing I want to point out to all of you is with respect to these discussion threads. So the rubric that Kane Online requires is for you to have one, initial post and then 5 responses. So with 30 students in a class, that's insane. 180 posts a week to look through and comment on and respond to. So what I want you to do instead is focus on creating 2 good posts that are supported, provide information for you. So for example, you are going to have your initial post with a great, supported argument, and then you're going to have one strong response to somebody else in class that adds and continues the conversation, rather than, let's see if we have an example here. Rather than, for example, here, a simple response that doesn't necessarily add anything onto the conversation. It's perfectly fine to have, a nice response, an introduction, provide information, but ideally you just want to have an initial post that's informative and then one response that's also informative and adds to the conversation. So again, you're not worrying about writing 6 posts a week like Gain Online and some of your other courses will require you to do. Again, just go ahead and make one strong initial post, like some of these here, and one strong response, rather than these generic couple sentence, couple word responses that do not necessarily add to the conversation. And even though, as I mentioned, the rubric calls for that, like I said, since I'm going to go ahead and grade these, one strong initial post, one strong response, instead of one initial post and one or 5 responses rather. Then each week you're going to have one of these case studies. The one thing you need to pay most attention to is these case studies are within the textbook. So you'll have the Redfish, Bluefish LLP case study, for example, on page 47. And then there's questions on the following page, page 48 within the textbook. Don't answer those. Answer the ones that are listed here on Canvas associated with the case study. All you need to do is just answer those questions. If you've had me in other classes before, my case studies are required to be done a little differently with an executive summary, conclusions, suggestions, etc. Within this course, just answer those. In this instance, it's 3 questions related to the case study. Next week, it's 4. It will vary from week to week. So what I'm hoping to do each week for the discussion thread and your case study is update my course blog that I've sent out in the announcements a couple times here with information on what you can draw on and look at when you're answering those questions. You don't necessarily have to follow this. These are just suggestions. So for example, with discussion question 1, which asked you about globalization and technology developments have led to some significant changes in the global economy. Discuss the importance of such changes to the U.S. What is the impact upon supply chains? I said you could focus on globalization, technology, development of the supply chain issues, technology, and NAFTA, etc. Whereas with the case study, you have 3 specific questions. For the first question, you're asked to explain what the advantages of a trade agreement are and how it might impact a company like the Redfish, Bluefish. So I suggest that you look through the information about NAFTA as a guide for the positives you may want to touch on related to a trade agreement. For question 2, it says, what makes the demographics of the Asian countries attractive for future trade development? You have 2 different tables within your text that you can refer to that are probably major things, like their high population and the fact that they're a top trading partner with the US. So there's a lot of people to buy from, and they're already connected with us. So you could use that as part of your answer as well. The third question asks, what challenges would Redfish, Bluefish likely experience? Your answer can revolve around sustainability and any of the issues mentioned for supply chains. Again, these are just suggestions. It's entirely up to you whether or not you choose to use these suggestions or not, but you can, and you'll see right now, I only have updated through Unit 2. So as I suggested with these quizzes, I would do them first. They're just 20 questions, easy to do. Now, if you happen to have time, I might even do some of those quizzes in advance. So let's say you have 2 hours, nothing going on, you want to get some homework done, maybe you could do 3 of the quizzes at once. Because as of now, I believe all of the modules are open and available to you. You're more than welcome to jump ahead as you so choose. You may have more time to do work this week than next week. So maybe you try and get everything done for Unit 1 and Unit 2 this week. And, this way you could get through your busy week next week. That's entirely up to me, or up to you rather. Just keep in mind that I may not necessarily grade your discussion or case study early, whereas the quizzes each time are auto-graded. So in theory, you could have all 8 of your quizzes done by the end of this week, if you so chose to do so. So each week you're given resources, which is simply the PowerPoint slides that we're going to cover that week. So I have these slides available up on the course blog for you to go through at your leisure as well, as you choose. However, I'm not going to go through each of these individual slides. I will, however, provide you with some additional information to add on to those courses, which is basically what's going to be the focus of each of these weekly meetings. They may not necessarily even be the full hour long. I'm just going to cover what I intended to cover during that specific week. And as I mentioned, going forward, these will probably stay all on Monday evenings after my face-to-face class at King Ocean. So in essence, this course is very similar to if you've ever had operations management or the Intro to Supply Chain course. Very, very similar. You've probably already seen all of this information before if you've taken those classes. The focus of this course is on the transportational aspect of the supply chain. How are we getting items from part A, from place A to place B? How are we putting them together? Then how are we selling them? How are we getting them to the distributor? So supply chain is a system of organizations, people, activities, information, and resources all involved in the planning, moving, or storage of a product or service from the supplier to the customer. How do we get the product from the company to you, the customer? Supply chain management is the planning and management of all activities involved in sourcing, procurement, conversion, and logistics management, as well as the coordination and collaboration with channel partners, including their suppliers, intermediaries, third-party service providers, and customers. Supply chains themselves are either efficient, which means low cost, or responsive, which means flexible. They change over time. Efficient gets the product to the customers as soon as possible. Responsive allows for the modification based on product demand. So, for example, your food might be efficient. You order it, it shows up. Your flexible or responsive might be, say, you're ordering something from Etsy. It's customized. With respect to this, you might use the SCORE model, which is used to plan, source, make, deliver, and return processes over and over again within the supply chain. So you plan out what you're going to do. Your source is where you're getting all the information or your components to what you're making or putting together. Then you make it, you deliver it, you drop it off, you send it to the customer. The return aspect has 2 different parts to it. You maybe say you had a vehicle that went out to drop off the delivery. Technically, it physically returns to where it now needs to go. The other aspect of return is you may look through that list of steps and decide, oh, there's a different way we can do it. We go ahead and change the method, our approach, our process. That could be the return part as well, where you modify to make that process cheaper and or simpler. So some of the supply chain functions include procurement, which is getting your products or services from another source. You might use them to put something together. Demand forecasting, which is basically using some kind of metric to determine, hey, what's our demand going to be? How many of these products are we going to sell? Customer service and order management, which is basically, hey, somebody ordered a product. How do we make it the most comfortable experience they can have? Inventory, how much of a product do we have? Transportation, which is the focus of this course. How do we get it from our, let's say, stock room to the customer? How do we get it from our warehouse to the customer? Warehousing. If we have more inventory than we need, where are we storing it? What place is it going to be in? Materials handling and packaging. Do we have a product that needs to be bubble wrapped, for example, if it's shipped? And then finally, facility networks. Where is our products located? Do we have enough in a single area to make sure that it's transported to a customer quickly and for the lowest cost possible? Then there's the value chain, which includes inbound logistics, which means where are you storing your inventory? Operations, what are you creating? Marketing and sales, what is the price of the product? Are you promoting it? Like the big thing now with the new Apple products is everybody's getting text messages. Oh, take X amount of dollars off for your trade-in on the new iPhone. That would technically be related to marketing and sales. And then lastly is service. What value are you providing to the customers? For example, let's say Best Buy with the Geek Squad. You pay X amount of money a year so you can go in and bring your product to have it looked at, fixed, anything specific, upgrades, anything you may need would all be covered under that. You call in, you're a customer of some kind of company, let's say your bank. What kind of service do they give you? Do they treat you well? Do they answer your questions? Do they solve any issues you have? Now, processes like human resources and finance departments also influence that value chain. As you can imagine, though, there are different supply chain strategies used based on different companies. So a core strategy is going to get the products to the customers at the cheapest price possible. So you would think of Walmart, for example. You have your great value products that might be $1, $2. They're on the shelves right away. Then you might have a time strategy, which focuses on getting the products to the customers at the quickest speed. So for example, Dell or some of these other specific electronic companies, you might be able to order something and pick it up that same day, have it shipped to you the same day. A lot of companies are trying to get into the time strategy method. How do we get products to the customers as soon as possible, even if they can't get to us physically? Can we get to them physically? Do we have our supply chain set up that way? For example, you go out and you see Amazon trucks all over the place now. They're trying to get a product to you as soon as possible, especially with Amazon Prime. Then you might have the quality strategy, which gets products to the customers at the best quality. It may not necessarily be the quickest, it may not necessarily be the cheapest, but you're going to get a great quality product. For example, Sony televisions, or maybe Carhartt clothing. You get them, they're going to last a while. They're going to be quality products. Might not necessarily be able to get it to you, within 5 minutes. Might not necessarily be able to get it to you for $2, but the product you receive is going to be worth the price and going to last you a while. And then lastly is the flexibility strategy, which allows you to get any product you need based on your needs. Amazon, for example. You can go on Amazon and find any different item you might want to purchase, and it's all there and readily available for you. So again, as I mentioned, going through this course, the focus will be, and these weekly meetings will be, as I mentioned, as I just did, cover some recommendations for how to best go through the discussion and case study, cover some additional comments or topics that might not necessarily be covered in the readings or the resources, and to provide you a general guide going forward. So as I mentioned with the discussions, even though it says you want one initial post and 5 responses, just go ahead and do one strong initial post and one strong response. You don't want to have just, a 1-sentence response that doesn't contribute to the conversation. You want to add some kind of comment. It doesn't have to be a full paragraph, but it should focus on further driving that conversation. So going forward, as I mentioned, each of the Zoom meetings will be on Mondays. So that's because I have a 4:30 to 7:15 at Kane Ocean right on campus. So I will be able to do these meetings right afterward. I know it's a little difficult to see the PowerPoint or the syllabi rather on the Canvas page the way Kane Online has this set up, but I know they recommend that you only message through Canvas. You're more than welcome to email me, text me, call me, whatever you need to do if you have a question. And I am on Kane Ocean's campus on Mondays. So from 3 usually to about 4. And this will be till 8:30 now with our class starting in the Gateway 314 adjunct office. Otherwise, I'm in my classroom in Gateway 322. If you wanted to pop in and ask a question before my class were to start at 4:30, that's entirely up to you. And as I mentioned, each of these assessments are due each week. The discussion thread, the case study, the quiz. I would always start with doing the quiz first because it's the least amount of points, and it's literally just looking in the textbook for answers to the question. As I mentioned, even though it says on the Canvas shell that Unit 8 goes until Christmas Day, we have that set up as December 19th through December 22nd. So keep that in mind. Basically, every unit is Tuesday through Sunday, except for that last one, due to the schedule as it has been set up. So each week I'm required to send out 2 announcements. So basically what I will use those for is to send out an announcement basically informing you that I've updated the course blog with suggestions on what to use to answer the discussion quiz, question rather, and case information. And as I mentioned, these meetings may not necessarily go the full hour. It looks like only, well, guess they left. Nobody came in for the full time, so I guess there are no questions. So again, reach out to me with any questions as you need. I will go ahead and post these Zoom recordings on the course blog, as well as add them onto our Canvas page.